Hello and welcome to this episode of UFOcast as Captain Scarlet, and this time we're looking at Renegade Rocket. Oh, Renegade Rocket. I have to be honest, as far as prior ratings go, this is one of the few episodes that I rated as poor, at least as far as I could remember. There's some episodes that I've gone, I don't remember what I think about this episode, so there may be some others that fall into that category. This also comes with bad memories because when Captain Scarlet was repeated on BBC Two when I was a kid, this was the episode that was broadcast on my birthday, and I would have been 8, I think, if I've got the year right. And I distinctly recall my family and I all agreeing after this one was over that it had been rubbish. And that was my recollection from having rewatched it on DVD. Yeah, it's still rubbish. This is still the poorest episode of Captain Scarlet thus far. It will certainly have a rival in the final episode of the series, which is the only other one that I can recall being terrible. And there may be others along the way, but for now, this is definitely the worst episode of Captain Scarlet. But let's try and find some positives. This is definitely the most the Angels have had to do, I think. But it also starts that slightly worrying trend of Angels being outwitted and shot down early. And also I noticed this time round a continuity error as Melody Angel's glasses appear and disappear at will, depending on presumably the order that they shot stuff in, which was very distracting. So it's great to see them in some action. It was great to see them taking a part in the plot, and it was great to see Rhapsody taking some initiative, trying to talk to Major Reeves. So that was an interesting aspect of the plot. But equally, it was there to disguise the fact that the plot of this one is particularly thin. The Mysterons are going to send a rocket up and bring it back down and blow up a base. I'm not even going to go into the physics of that because I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty certain because of how these things work that you can't just easily send a rocket straight up and back down again because of the curve of the Earth and it moving and all that jazz. If you are better at that kind of thing than I am, do let me know how improbable this whole thing is. The two other aspects of this episode which are really, really poor, and they're sort of linked. One is the fact that the unit that falls over at the end and detonates the bomb, how is it still connected to the system? But if it can work like that, why do they have to be in the control room to use the replacement unit? Why can't they also have a remote unit and they can do their password stuff somewhere else? And the second thing is just how little Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue have to do in this episode. They basically sit around in Cloud Base for half the episode. Colonel White tells them to go to the base, probably after he should have told them to go to the base. Why aren't they sent earlier? But then when they are there, they're just there to do what somebody else could have done, which is plug in the passwords until hopefully they get the right one, knowing that it's a futile thing to do. So it's just poorly plotted, poor use of characters. The whole thing at the end of Spectrum needs brave men, but we're going to possibly discipline you because you stayed behind to get blown. I mean, it's just very frustrating. And it's one of those ones where Captain Scarlet should have stayed and Captain Blue should have gone because Captain Scarlet will survive, and whereas Captain Blue will be dead. It's just a mess of an episode, this one. The fact that the episode hinges around trying to type in a code word. Now, I guess, to give it its due, this is years before anybody who was viewing this episode would have been likely to have had to type a password in anywhere. And the idea that you've got 10,000 four-letter words in a book that you have to pick from to be your password seems ridiculously archaic. And it's not like this plot device hasn't been done to death of, let's try and guess the password that the person has put in. And it's done much worse in other places. So I don't think I can fault it on that. And the whole we got to Amen and the actual password was 0 is kind of funny. Talking of funny, actually, the best moment in the whole episode is when Reeves comes back in. Well, the mysterized Reeves comes back in after the real Reeves has been killed. And he's asked if he's feeling better, and he says, I feel a new man. I'm like, yes, Mr. On humour. But yes, the rest of the episode is downhill from there.
And now it's time for this week's Spectrum Agent Report with Michael, my co-host from the UFOcast.
Hello and welcome to, actually not a Tin Dog podcast at all. I've been asked by Luke to give you, well, some thoughts on Captain Scarlet. Now, I've only got 2 minutes, so bear with me. I'm going to bomb through this as fast as I can. First off, Captain Scarlet. It's got basically something intrinsically wrong with the plot, like the concept as a whole. Captain Scarlet's taken over by the Mysterons, and then he becomes a good guy because he apparently dies but doesn't die, and he ends up being immortal. It's Captain Jack. We get it. C cloud base, C unit, doesn't matter. The problem is that everyone else is still controlled by the Mysterons, and he's not, because this isn't really Captain Scarlet. This is a duplicate of Captain Scarlet. Now, this is all dealt with very nicely in the new CGI version. It actually makes sense. But here, the plot basically has that as a basic flaw, and then it also has the other thing as its basic flaw, which again, we're thinking Captain Jack. Captain Scarlet is indestructible, therefore the levels of peril in the episode are massively reduced. Will he die? No. Ooh, nope, still won't die. Right, you've got it. Yes, there are whole loopholes and ways round this, but that's one of the reasons why I was never as much of a fan of this show as I could have been. With Thunderbirds, you've got the peril, you've got the hood, you've got, will they, won't they manage to rescue everyone? Spoilers, they will manage to rescue everyone. That kind of thing. Again, the CGI version of Thunderbirds I absolutely loved because they took what we already adored and made it even better. CGI version of Captain Scarlet I loved, but I've been given this specific episode to talk about. Problem is, it's got some flaws as well. All the way through there's the peril of will they manage to figure out the password? Well, it doesn't really matter because Captain Scarlet is indestructible. It's Captain Blue who throws his cap on the floor so that his radio isn't working. I'm thinking, we'll just keep going and sort this out. One of the main flaws with this story is that the rockets are taking off. Well, there's two things that they need to track down. There's the saboteur, and then there's the actual rocket. Straight up, straight down is a really nice concept because radar obviously works in a two-dimensional plane. But one of the big flaws with this storyline is that the Angels are after the saboteur, who's already a Mysteron agent and has therefore outlived his usefulness and is therefore not needed for the plot in a kind of a peril flying kind of way. We love the Angel Interceptors. We absolutely love the way that the characters are designed, the build, the puppeteering, everything is so damn fine for Captain Scarlet. But it falls down on the basic premises of the storyline. It feels like a first draft. But its biggest sin by far isn't the destruction of the person who doesn't really matter, or the escape of the person who doesn't really matter. It's the way that the plot finishes. You have to add 4 digits. Now, I was trying to do the maths on the way to work today. It's 26 times 26 times 26 times 26 is the 4 things. Now, they keep using words, which isn't actually the case, because everyone who lives in 2022 understands how passwords actually work. They're just random collections of phrases. They're algebra. They're not a specific code or phrase. They're not words, but I know this is supposed to be a kid's show, so it has to be words that you have to go through the alphabet. But, you've worked with people who do Boggle in real life and Boggle on a computer, where you're just randomly typing in 3-letter words, hoping that in fact reality is they are words that you just don't know. So you'd have to go A, B, C, D, and so on in order to get through everything. And you have to type it all in by hand, which again is weird. And then you have to get through the thing. Now, what you would think is, what I was expecting was Captain Scarlet to figure out some sort of puzzle and realise, oh no, this is the 0 hour, or what's our chance of survival? 0, let's try that. That wasn't even gone into, that didn't even come up. What happened was the thing fell to the bottom of the sea and then apparently malfunctioned. It didn't even land on the abort button, which would have made more sense when you saw it moving. Perhaps they just ran out of time filming, because that would have made a tiny bit of sense. Are they going to be court-martialed? No. Shut up, Captain Brown. What? They should have at least got into a bit of trouble instead of just having a damn good telling off. It didn't work on a story level. On the models level, spot on. Puppeteering, great. Acting, great. Well, I say great. Melody Angel does sound quite a lot like Miranda when she talks. There's no panic in her voice. When it's Sylvia doing the voice, she just doesn't have, I'm going to have to eject. No, not for me. So I understand why this is not a particularly well-loved story, but it could have been fixed and it could have been brought back from the brink very, very easily. So they're my thoughts. And I hope that was enough. Because Captain Scarlet is great. And if you haven't tried the CGI version, I'm saying go for it now. Yes, we love Super Marionation, but the CGI version has heart and it's fixed the plot holes. Look, I'll send you back to Luke now. Do I be seeing you? I usually do. Be seeing you.
And if you'd like to be a Spectrum agent in a future week, please head over to ufocast.co.uk/captain and sign up.
So let's draw a veil over this terrible Captain Scarlet episode with the usual things that we're looking for in terms of episode order. This is, again, another episode that features early-ish on in the series as far as the Blu-ray and the production order goes, but the DVD order had it 17, so sort of halfway through the series, and the VHS order had it 13. So again, one of those episodes that got pushed back in those other orders. It stands very much alone, so you could probably have it anywhere really, as far as the series goes. There is no continuity with anything else. This is the first we've heard of Major Reeves as a friend of Colonel White, and obviously it's the last we will hear of him in that capacity. New Mr. powers. Well, making a person sick at a distance. I suppose you could consider it as an extension of the powers we saw in Winged Assassin and Big Ben Strikes Again, with the whole looking at the plane and making it crash and taking over Macy's truck by looking at it. I suppose you could say this is just more of the same. Mr. still at large, Captain Black, of course. Is it a win or a loss? I suppose it's a win for Spectrum. It's a loss for script writing. And head over to the website UFOcast.co.uk for this week's Mr. Puppet Gallery. Major Reeves will be added on there. Of course, he previously appeared as Captain Brown in the opening episode, so look out for that. Next week, it can only get better. Well, I suppose it could get worse, but I'm pretty sure it gets better. Next week, we'll be looking at White as Snow, so join me for that.